Well, hello. My name is Joe Okipinti, and I want to talk a little bit about knowledge. What does it mean to know things? And how do we come to know the world? How do we come to understand life around us, people, the processes that unfold in nature or in our economy or in politics, whether it be from academia or from one's personal experience, from reading a book? How do we know things? So this is not an easy question to answer, and it's hard to know where to begin. But let's just start with different ways of knowing. One is just from life, just experiencing things and developing memories, learning about life that way. Another is by reading stories, literature, and coming to similar conclusions by what you read and experience in a book or watching a movie. Listening to others tell you about the world, tell you what it's like, whether that be a person of authority or a friend. But with people of authority, that has more weight because we are, in a way, over thousands and thousands of years of human existence, conditioned to believe people that have greater power over us. And so we weigh what they say a lot more without even knowing it. It could be coming from religion, from politics, from your work, your profession. And the other thing is science. What is science? Science is a method of understanding the world. It's a method particularly of understanding the natural world. And it's based on observation. So whereas many other things on how we learn are coming from people in authority, science is based on observation. And by the way, so is much of life experience as well. Much of life experience is based on what we observe. However, all of these ideas coming from people of authority have shaped the way we see the world. They shape the way we interpret what we see. And so much of what we experience is also conditioned by our ideas about the world. We don't just see things objectively and plainly. We see things through colored lenses. And that lens may be religion, it may be nationality or nationalism, any kind of set of ideas that has influenced someone. Now, science tries to break through that problem. It tries to overcome these preconditioned ideas about what we know and what we understand. And the way it does that is by using a very detailed method of uncovering the natural world. And so it's different that way. Human beings are always going to have these subjective biases about the world based on their own experience, who they've listened to, where they grew up. So science understands that, and it tries to minimize those biases as best as possible in a very systematic way. Before I get to science as a method, I want to talk a little bit about intuition. The other way we come to understand the world is by having a sense of it. And that sense is a mystery sometimes. We don't know where it came from, but we have feelings about things. We have feelings about situations and people. We make decisions based on those feelings. Primarily, that's what most people do. Even the politicians that we choose, for the most part, they're chosen based on feelings about them, not so much about some kind of scientific or systematic process of knowing who they are. So feelings are very powerful, and they shape how we think the world is. But then we have to think about, where's that intuition coming from? where are those feelings about the world and people coming from? Are they coming from an independent source from you? That's what a lot of people believe. Perhaps some kind of connection with a higher power or more wise beings out there. I'm not going to question that notion. I'm not going to challenge it. I'm not going to tell you it's wrong. But what I will say is that even mystical traditions that believe that, if you really look into them, if you really study them, let's say Buddhism, they will teach you that a lot of our intuition is delusion, that we have to be able to learn how to assess our own thoughts. Most of the time, our feelings are coming from our needs to be safe, our needs to be understood, our needs to feel like we know things, our needs to feel like there's hope, our needs to feel like we're powerful, our needs to feel like we're being taken care of. We base a lot of our feelings on being social beings and being accepted, or being a person of influence or power. And even if you believe that there is a higher source out there, how do you break through all that noise? How do you know that your intuition or your feelings are actually telling you something meaningful and powerful, or whether they are just an expression of your desires or your fears, your hopes? And so if you do believe that you can access this greater wisdom, what these traditions will tell you is that it's a lifetime of work to get there, that you just don't automatically believe things. So what I would suggest to you is that we need to be self-critical of our intuition and our feelings about, and our understanding and our thinking about the world. We can't accept those things as a given or as a truth. To grow in wisdom, to grow as a person, one must be self-aware of one's own thoughts and beliefs, first and foremost. So let's go back now to talking about science. What science offers us, but it offers us a way to verify other belief systems. And then we can find through that process how grounded we are, how much of what we think is based on the nature of life, reality. Right? To verify something, to make it real, is really, really important. We all need to be grounded in that truth. Now we can talk about truth philosophically and, in a million different ways. Is there truth? Isn't there truth? Is it absolute? Isn't it absolute? But there's no need to go there for most people, unless you're a philosopher. It may be a subjective truth that gravity is going to make you fall, but in a practical sense, you know better than to question that. You're not going to jump off a building. There is a reality to gravity. Now, ultimately, what gravity is, who knows, right? We can talk about that forever. If you're a physicist, you can argue about gravity. You can theorize about it. But in a practical sense, to live one's life, there are truths that are very, very solid. And we have to ground ourselves in those truths. Science helps us do that. And why does it do that? Because science is very humble. Now, scientists may not always be humble. They may be very arrogant. Not all of them, of course, some of them are humble. But science itself is fundamentally humble. It does not presuppose anything. It does not ever say it has absolute truth. It only says it has practical truths. Truth as we know them now, based on how the world works. So it's important to learn the scientific way of thinking and understanding the world as a way to ground ourselves. And then from there, if you are motivated by spiritual matters, esoteric understandings of life, you'll be far better off, because you'll be able to ascertain whether or not your knowledge of the world is coming from a place of truth. What is science? Science is observation. Trying to observe the world as objectively as possible. And by the way, science understands that absolute objectivity is an impossibility. We know this, but the goal, right? The goal of trying to be objective is extremely important because it cuts through a lot of the noise. And so the better you can design your research to be objective, the more accurate you'll come to a truth. As simple as that. And also that understanding, whatever it ends up being, that theory that comes out of science, science understands that it is provisional, that in the future we may find new ways of observing the world. We may discover new things, and all of a sudden, based on those new observations, all of a sudden theories change. We understood the world one way until telescopes were invented, and then all of a sudden we understood the world another way. The cosmos became far grander. We understood ourselves and nature one way until microscopes were invented, and then all of a sudden our understanding of nature just flourished. It changed dramatically. We keep coming up with new ways of observing nature, from satellites to computers to statistical analysis, all kinds of things that are helping us see the world better, and then in turn reshaping our knowledge and our theories about the world. And that is what science is doing for us. It continuously changes our worldviews and our knowledge based on these new discoveries. So I'll leave it at that, and talk to you next time.